This was published yesterday in Science Daily, ScienceDaily.com. It was originally, this is from Washington University in St. Louis. And you'll recall last week I was talking about high fructose corn syrup and how back literally 10 years ago, when 12, 13 years ago, when I started this show, I was going off on high fructose corn syrup. I have been convinced since this stuff hit the marketplace in the, as I recall, the 80s. Remember when Coke changed their formula? That was like a couple of years, a year or two or three after high fructose corn syrup became a thing. Because it used to be Caro corn syrup. I remember as a little kid growing up, my parents had very little money until my dad got a good job at a tool and die shop, and that didn't happen until I was about 8 years old. In fact, yesterday I was remembering being 6 years old. We lived in this house on Cleveland Street in Lansing, Michigan. It was a one-bedroom house, and it was me and my mom and dad, and my mom was pregnant with my brother Steve. And, the three of us lived in this little tiny one-bedroom house. It couldn't have been 800 square feet. I mean, it was just a tiny thing. Maybe, probably smaller than that. I don't know how to do square feet. But it was, basically a bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen. No basement, no nothing. I mean, my dad was making a living selling Rexairs door to door and World Book Encyclopedias door to door. That's what he did. This was 1950. If I was 6 years old, it would have been 1957. And we couldn't afford maple syrup. I mean, we couldn't afford a lot of things. We used to go down to we called it the cheese store, right? We go to the place where they didn't sell it. They gave it away. You'd have to go every week and stand in line and get a 10 or 20 pound brick of American cheese. And, a 50-pound bag or 25-pound bag of powdered milk. I hated powdered milk. And you could get a 50-pound bag of macaroni. And I remember living on macaroni and cheese. That's what we had for dinner every night for weeks. And so instead of maple syrup, we had corn syrup. And it was called Caro, C-A-R-O brand. And it was thick, and it wasn't particularly sweet. And I hated the stuff. And they would get a little bit of maple syrup and mix it with a whole big thing of Caro syrup so that we could have it on pancakes, and stuff like that. I mean, this is, it got a whole lot better. 2 years later, my dad got a job in a tool and die shop, in a union shop, and boom, suddenly we were part of the middle class. And he bought a house, and a different house in another part of town that had 3 bedrooms, and that I grew up in with my 3 other brothers. But anyhow, back to and that's, when I knew what corn syrup was. But when they came out with this new corn syrup, this high fructose corn syrup, this new chemical, and then Coke decided, okay, they wanted to take sugar out of their Coke and put high fructose corn syrup in it because we're subsidizing this with our tax dollars, right? We subsidize the corn growers. This is a giant subsidy. And so it was cheaper. And that was the whole reason for the new Coke thing, right? So anyhow, back to high fructose corn syrup. The headline of this article, the headline of this story, high fructose diet during pregnancy may harm placenta and restrict fetal growth. Say, what? Consuming a high fructose diet during pregnancy. Now, this is high fructose corn syrup. This is the stuff that they sweeten the soft drinks with. This is the stuff that they sweeten almost everything with. It's in your ketchup. Consuming a high fructose diet during pregnancy may cause defects in the placenta and restrict fetal growth, potentially increasing a baby's risk for metabolic health problems later in life, according to research in mice and people by a team at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. And then they found out, now this is where it gets very strange, they found out that there's this drug called allopurinol, a generic drug frequently used to treat gout and kidney stones. Apparently, some of these pregnant mothers must have been taking this stuff because they discovered that when you give this drug, it appears to mitigate the negative maternal and fetal effects of high fructose corn syrup. The findings suggest it may be possible to devise a prenatal screening test and treatment plan for pregnant women with high fructose levels. Hey, why not just tell them to stop eating high fructose corn syrup? Why instead give them a drug for gout that has a whole, look it up in the PDI. In the PDI, there's a whole collection of side effects for this thing. They note that refined sugar accounts for more than half of all sweeteners used in the U.S. food supply chain, and in recent years, there's growing concern that fructose in processed foods and sugary drinks may be linked to diabetes and obesity. Kelly H. Holy, MD, the School of Medicine's James P. Crane Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and the study's senior author, said this study shows potentially negative effects of a high fructose diet during pregnancy. And then they get into why, and this is something I did not know. I knew that high fructose corn syrup could produce fatty liver disease and that it would lead to weight gain. But I didn't know the actual method by which it works, and here it is. Fructose is processed differently than other sugars such as glucose. I'm quoting from this study. Glucose, the body converts into energy. Instead, fructose is broken down by liver cells that turn the sugar, the fructose, into a form of fat known as triglycerides, while also driving high levels of uric acid, a normal waste product found in urine. Too much uric acid can create metabolic mayhem, resulting in obesity, type 2 diabetes, and other health conditions. The one that it's most famous for is gout. Gout is a collection of uric acid crystals in your joints. Studying mice, the researchers found elevated uric acid and triglycerides in otherwise healthy mice who were fed a high fructose diet during pregnancy. Additionally, the mice developed smaller fetuses than those on standard rodent chow. Genetically, Moley says, the small fetus may become wired to grow more after birth than a normal-sized fetus. Moley said, this is Kelly H. Moley, MD, the School of Medicine's professor, James P. Crane, Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology. She said, the body tries to compensate for the small growth in utero. These babies can become kids and then adults struggling with obesity and other problems. So they're literally born to be overweight. Maternal health may also suffer. Metabolic problems caused by high levels of uric acid and fat and that would be the triglycerides from eating high fructose corn syrup, increase a woman's risk of developing pregnancy complications such as preeclampsia, which can be fatal, by the way. It's a very serious condition in pregnancy, marked by high blood pressure, swelling, and high protein levels in the urine, and gestational diabetes. In other words, diabetes, quote, caused by pregnancy. Well, it turns out it's not caused by pregnancy. It's caused by high fructose corn syrup consumption during pregnancy. Finally, at the end of the article, they quote the lead author of the study, and she says, one of the best ways to ensure healthy maternal and fetal outcomes is by eating natural foods. Good one. And then they add, they're going to do more studies on allopurinol and pregnant women to find out if it'll help fetal growth, in women who just refuse to stop drinking their Pepsi or whatever. That's mind-boggling, isn't it?
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.